Hello. You've made some fantastic blog posts on your website. You've all got a nice website now with some blog posts. The next project is to get this content ready for print. So we're going to actually convert this content and make it available for InDesign so that we can design a great print publication. How do we go about doing that then? Well, first thing is we do need some software, and I've got the links up here on the screen right now. We need Panwriter, and as you can see, this is the website for it. And you need to also install something called Pandoc. Now, these two pieces of software are free to you. They're both available. They're available for Mac and PC, so no platform issues here. Once you've got these pieces of software installed, then we need to go to the next step, which is to go to our GitHub repository and actually get a copy of all of our content that is currently being used to build our website. So I'm going to go to my GitHub repository right now and bring that up onto the screen. Here's my site. All of this is the code that's being used to deliver the site. We don't need to make any changes right now. You may have already done this once before, but all we need to do is to go to this code button here and download a zip of all of this. So we're downloading all of the content into a zip file. Now, depending on the browser that you're using, this is going to either unpack immediately if you're using something like Safari, or in my case I'm using Chrome, and that means therefore that it's gone into my downloads folder over here. You can see, and what I'm going to do is to get a copy of that. So I'm just manipulating my Finder windows on the Mac. You obviously going to have to do this slightly differently on a PC, but we need to get this zip file that's downloaded, and I'm going to take it into my project file folder over here. Let's get rid of the downloads folder now. Okay, so here's my project where I'm working on my my website and my print publication. There's the zip file. I'm going to double click on that to unpack it. Okay, so let me now just get this browser out of the way because we don't need that. This is then inside this folder here. This is where we have all of our assets. So this again is, if you like, a mirror of what we've just looked at on GitHub. So these are all the assets, the files, the configurations, everything that's needed to build our website. But what we're particularly interested in is we're interested in this posts folder here. So you can see that in this post folder, I've got all of these articles in a form known as Markdown. And from these, we will need to then convert these ready to use in InDesign. That's the idea. We are also going to do the same for the About Me page and the About page. We're going to do that as well later, but for the moment, we need one of these articles. So the way we do this then is to use Panwriter, which you will have installed, as I say, but I've already got it running at the moment. So I'm going to open one of those posts. Now you can see if I go into my my folder here, it's actually here under my big text master, and I'm going to go into my posts folder, and you'll see here now I've got my 4 articles. I've only got 4 articles at this moment when I'm making this video. And I'm going to take, for example, this first one, which is about IKEA, and I'm going to select that and open it. And now what we're actually seeing on the screen here is, and I'll just enlarge this up a little bit so you can see, this is basically that file in Markdown form. Now, Panwriter is a Markdown editor or writer, so you can actually use Panwriter to write your articles even using the Markdown syntax, but we don't need to do that because we've got our content management system. But this is effectively showing you in its Markdown form. In fact, we can also, if we go up here, we can just roll over here, we can actually see this in its basic state anyway. So we can see the article with the images scrolling side by side with the actual Markdown. So that's our article, just to confirm that we've got it. I'm going to go back to just seeing it as an open Markdown view, and now what I need to do is to convert this into a Word document. So how do we go about that? Well, we just simply go to File, Export, and then choose the Word format. Now, if you're not seeing this list, just a word of warning, if you're not seeing this list, it's because you haven't installed Pandoc, the second piece of software that we need. So install Pandoc and you'll see a list of various formats that you can convert your content to. But I only am interested in converting it to Word. Okay, it's confirming that it's done that, success as it's saying. And now if you look over here in my Finder, you should see then in the post folder, I've got a Word version of that as well. And I'm not going to open it, I don't need to see it particularly. What I really need to do now is to go to my InDesign template and begin the process of placing that content into InDesign. So let's go right over now to look for our template. Now I've already downloaded this. You will have grabbed a copy from Moodle actually, and the template is called Publication INDT, which is an InDesign template. And I'm just going to double click on that. And this should straight away open in InDesign, although it happened very quickly in my case because I've got it already open. I've got InDesign already open. So this is the template. So what we're actually seeing here is one page ready for the content to be placed in. The template has certain features, as you can see. So it has a grid. It is of a particular size, which is a standard size that we're going to use, so we're all using the same size. You will have already used it to build up your first page, your cover or title page, if you like, for this publication. You will have already done that. But what we need to do now is just to place one of these articles. So in some ways it might be slightly different for you because you might be placing this into pages a little bit later on after you've developed the first page for the cover, but no problem, doesn't really matter, the same effects here. So I'm going to now place this, and I'm now looking for my IKEA document. Let's just make sure I've got the right one here because I've done this a number of times now. Okay, so it's inside my post folder, and here it is. That's the document that I'm placing in. Now you'll notice that down here I also have the show import options switched on. The reason for that is that when I'm going here to this dialog box, which comes up next, I just want to make sure that I'm importing the styles, but I'm making sure that I'm using the styles that InDesign already has. This is not so important for the very first article, but as we subsequently place in the later articles, because you're going to work for one article, with the one article you're going to make some decisions about your typographic styles and so forth, and the second article and subsequent articles you want to make sure that you're not overriding those changes. So what we're getting to the habit now of always using the InDesign style definition for both paragraph and character styles. And now I'm going to click OK. Then what you're going to see is you're going to see this on your cursor you have the text, but the important thing is that if we now press the Shift key on the keyboard before we place the text, then you'll see that that becomes a little curly arrow. Can you see that? So when I now drop that into the corner, it then creates new pages. Let's just look at the Pages panel before we do anything else. So here you can see in my Pages panel, I've got the pages have been added for this very short article. So what we've actually got then is the basis. We've got the content. We haven't got, of course, the style. We're now going to spend the time developing the styles. We want to maybe use columns. We're going to do different things with the images and have them moving to one side and whatever. This is what you will have to do. This is your assignment. However, you've got the basic content. So the first thing to do, there are just now 2 further steps before I stop this video, and we have a later video which explains a little bit more about the styling. But right now what we need to do is to get rid of the date. We will always get the date for the first, when we place the content in. We need to get rid of that because we don't need it, of course, in the print article. That's the first thing to do. The second thing to do is we need to go into our links panel. Now this is actually quite important. I'm going to show you this in some detail, but what we actually have, let's actually just bring this down. You'll see that if I select any of these images and move down to here, you can see that this image is embedded. It's actually embedded in the document, in the InDesign document. Now that's okay in some ways. There's no radical issue with it. However, you really want to make sure that you use linked images, because then we can edit those images if we need to, and we will subsequently need to change the color space to CMYK, and we also may need to check and increase the resolution just depending on the nature of the image that you've placed. So what we need to do in order to do that is to select all of these images. So having selected the images, what I need to do now is to right click over them and click Unembed Link. Now this dialog box here needs some explanation. What it's basically saying is that I can unembed the images and then link them to the original files, or I can create a folder with these images in it. So it will automatically bring these images out, put them into a folder, so that I then have the links to them in that way. So it requires a little bit of explanation, because you don't want to click yes, you want to click no, because you're basically saying no, you don't want to link to the original files. You want to actually say no, so that it creates a folder for these images. So I'm going to click no. Then it's asking me to put them into a folder, and which folder am I going to put them in? Well, you can see that I've already got a folder called images, so that's where I'm going to put them. It's very important that you understand this structure. Whereabouts are you putting them? You really need to put them somewhere in relation to your project. So I do recommend that you have a project folder in which you're working for this assignment or this project. So I'm putting them in this folder here. I'm choosing that, and now you'll see that instead of saying, without the little icon that's saying that they're embedded, they're actually separate images like this. So for example, with this image here, which I'm going to now select, you'll see that I've got that image showing up here, but at the moment it's actually RGB, so I need to change that. And the way that I do this is to right click over the image and then go to Edit with Photoshop. This then brings up Photoshop onto the screen, which is loading, and that image will then be automatically loaded into Photoshop, and I then need to change something about it. I'm going to actually change the color space, and I'm also going to just check the resolution. The resolution actually at that size looks okay, in fact, but I'm going to obviously decide how I want to make use of that image on the page. So let's see how it looks in Photoshop. So in Photoshop, here it is. It's a PNG file. The problem with a PNG file is that it can't be set as CMYK actually. So we can go into the mode and change it to CMYK, but then it will need to be changed. The file name itself will need to be changed. So if I now save this, it will still be RGB unless I change the name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to a Photoshop file like this. So when I now go back to InDesign, that won't have changed, so it's still going to say RGB. So what I need to do now is I need to replace that image with the Photoshop alternative. So the way that I do that is to keep the image selected, go to File, Place, and then I'm looking for, in my folder where I've got all my images, which is here, I'm looking for that Photoshop version of the file. Now there's one thing that's very important. You may not be seeing things like this. You may not be seeing the .psd or .png or .jpeg. You may not be seeing that because your system is actually hiding the extensions. I do urge you, whether you've got a Mac or a PC, make sure that your system is set up so that you can actually view the extensions to the file names, because otherwise you can't see necessarily the difference between a PNG and a JPEG, etc. So I'm going to replace this the image that I've selected with that one. Okay, so now that we've done that, you'll see that this image here is now the PSD file, and it's also CMYK, and it also has an effective PPI of 343, which is perfectly adequate for our purposes. Now, I'm going to stop the video now because that's the end of this part of the process. The other part, of course, is to then work on the actual design and layout of this work. So we'll actually look at that again in another instructive video. Thank you.